Good morning, everybody. My name is Jimmy Pugh. I'm Project Development Coordinator. I'm overseeing or delivering the forum. We've got welcome introductions. Again, because of the amount of people in the room, I'll just sort of introduce the speakers that we have who have all turned up. So thank you, speakers, for turning up. Again, just last time in our first virtual forum, which I think was back in July now, I think I ended the forum on, hopefully we'll be meeting in Manchester for the next one. Now, obviously that's not happened. Again, rather sadly, I have sort of seen the advantages of having a Zoom meeting, and I just mentioned it to a couple of the speakers before you joined us. A couple of the advantages of having Zoom are there are people who are here with us today who would not normally be able to sort of attend our forums because of time constraints or travel costs. So again, that's one of the advantages. The other advantage is obviously we can have speakers along to these Zoom meetings that would normally not be able to attend, again, for a number of reasons, time constraints and traveling from the other end of the country. So again, that's advantage. The final advantage probably on a Zoom meeting is we don't have trouble with travel. We don't get cancelled trains, we don't get stuck on motorways, we're not affected by adverse weather. So most of the people turn up on time, so thank you for that. The big disadvantage to me, and I hope to most of the people in the room, is we're not able to network and talk to people as we normally would within the forum. One of the things that comes back regularly over the years from forums on the feedback is NEA always provide a decent lunch. That gets the best feedback ever, always has done. But then the sort of second in line to that is always organisations or individuals are quite pleased at the opportunity to network and meet other people, like-minded people and organisations within their area. So within the comfort break, the 15 minutes on the registration prior to a forum starting, the comfort break that we always build in, and obviously the lunch, is an ideal opportunity for us to get to know each other. And I say that was that's the biggest downside for me personally for not delivering these forums face to face. But again, it's what it is, and we'll just make do and get on with it. Hopefully this will be slick forum today. We have an absolutely wonderful team as backup as Brian Hart and Mike Potter, our comms team, and Tracy. But Tracy's only joining us. Take the register, aren't you, Tracy? Yeah. Yeah. So we do have backup if anything goes wrong. Speakers are quite confident on what they are expected or hope to do. So hopefully it will go smoothly. I'll apologise now if there are any hitches or glitches, but please bear with us. We sometimes don't have trouble over the technical part of it. And finally, we've got a chat function. Hopefully everyone in the room, I'll keep referring to everyone in the room. It just makes me feel more comfortable as though I'm with people. So again, most of the people hopefully will have had experience of Zoom and become quite sort of adept at using it. We have the chat function. So again, if there's any comments or questions that you wish to ask of the speakers, pop something in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat as we go along. A couple of speakers have asked that obviously the questions when they do their presentations, they will then invite questions at that point. Or to help us manage it, if you don't mind, if you think of a question, want to pop it into the chat for any particular speaker or just make a comment, I will be monitoring that throughout the morning. Is that okay? So we'll move on. So the agenda, hopefully you've all received an agenda. We had a last minute, I had a bit of a juggle with the forum to see about how it was run. We originally advertised this from 10 till 12. We've now got 10 till 12:30, but the way it should work, we should be away for hopefully about 10 past, quarter past 12, if that's okay. Again, what we've got is we'll be leading with Bays, and Kirsten Horton has kindly joined us today, who's the Senior Policy Advisor with Bays. And rather strangely, I'm doing this, and it's only dawned on me earlier on this morning when I was looking at it. some of the people in the room will thinking, I've done this back to front, but I haven't. I've done it deliberate, actually. Kirsten will be giving us the overview of the fuel poverty strategy, about the future, what's happening or what we're hoping to be doing in the future. Again, Matt Copeland will follow with our NEA policy update, and it ties in rather nicely with what Bays will be talking about. We've then asked Lewis Casely has kindly come along, and I've not seen Lewis at the moment, but hopefully he's with us. So again, Lewis is from Solar Capture, and it's about the solar capture technologies. And the reason we've invited Lewis along, I think personally, it ties in nicely with Bays and what we are talking about for the future. Hopefully we do have a future. At the moment, it seems to be getting moved each time the government come on the television. But we do seriously have to look about the future and how we address energy efficiency of the country. So again, hopefully with Bays, the fuel poverty strategy, Matt's NEA policy update, and Lewis's solar capture, that covers the future and what we should be hopefully looking for and being able to accomplish in the future. We will then take a COVID break of about 10 minutes just to stretch legs and top up our cup of tea and coffee. When we come back, we will then be focusing on the here and now, what we need to be doing, and certainly this coming winter. Winters are winters are usually quite bleak anyway at the best of times. It's going to be a lot harder this year. I think everyone in the room knows that. It's how we as organisations and advisors are able to provide that support that's sort of desperately needed out there now across the Northwest. So with that in mind, after the comfort break, we've asked again, Amanda Megson has come along again. She attended the last forum from Energy Savings Social Development Manager. So she's going to be giving us an update on the energy redress and also the future plans. So again, you can see where the agenda is working. We start with future, and there's a nice little link from Amanda that sort of we're dealing with the here and now, but we're also going to the future. I've also, at the end of it, we've also incorporated, and this is very much, this played on my mind an awful lot after the last forum, in this network opportunity, and it's driving me mad. So what I've tried to build in on the last bit, I've asked a few speakers along, that I've tried to cover the Northwest as best I can. So we've got Suzanne Barningham, from Energy Works. She's got Greater Manchester pretty much covered. So again, she will be giving us an update and sort of progress on what's available across Greater Manchester to the individual organisations within the room. Dom Griffiths has kindly come along on behalf of Energy Project Plus. Again, Dom's put together a nice little sort of slideshow for us. I'm so looking forward to it again, and I've already seen it. But again, Energy Project Plus will cover Merseyside, Cheshire, and Cheshire, Wirral, Merseyside, and Holton. Is that right, Dom? Gives us a thumbs up, yeah?
So Merseyside and Cheshire includes Wirral and Holton.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for embarrassing me, Dom. I'll get you back, don't worry. And then Carol from United Utilities has kind of come along. She's going to give us obviously what United Utilities are doing across the Northwest in support of households. Again, hopefully we've got a little bit of time there. Unfortunately, I couldn't get anyone to cover Lancashire, Forley or Cumbria, but if there's anyone in the room, I will try and hopefully we will have the opportunity for individual organisations to chip in at the end. And if you wish to put in the chat box during the run up to that part, we'll pick up. So I'm hoping that also with the three speakers we've got for support around the Northwest, we've got Northwest pretty much covered, but I'm hoping that the opportunity will be there for individual organisations. And I'm certainly looking at, without putting anyone on the spot, and I am going to do it, organisations that are based in Lancashire. So again, we've got a couple of organisations who are based in Lancashire. So again, if you want to chip in towards the end or during today on the chat, by all means, you're welcome. that is me done now. I'm going to put my feet up, let my tech team and let all my speakers, and then I will come in after a wonderful forum and say thank you to everyone. So please sit back, enjoy the show. There is no popcorn or drinks with this one. It is a very packed forum. This forum will be available on the NEA website as a recording, or the slides will be able to access if you're not able to sort of take in all the information that's on offer today. Is that okay? So I'll now kindly introduce or ask Kirsten to do her bit for Bays on the fuel poverty strategy. And again, there will be a slight delay with all these presentations while we click buttons and share screens. You okay, Kirsten?
Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing, Jimmy. So gonna have to get you to click the screen sharing button.
It's all sorted.
Oh, thank you.
This is what I just pointed out. We've got a wonderful team behind me who can sort all this out. So good morning, Kirsten, and it's over to you. Thank you.
Good morning. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you inviting me, Jimmy, and it's really nice to get to meet some of you here from, you know, I rarely get out of London, at least not as much as I like, especially this year. So it's nice that the internet can bring us together. So what I'm planning to do today is just talk through some of the support that's available right now to households this year, and also talk a bit about what's coming up on those different schemes, to try to give a clear sense for people, so when you're doing your planning, you have some sense of what direction the government's going in. So I hope that will be helpful to you. And at the end, I am happy to take some questions as well. So if you have any questions throughout, just pop them in the chat and I can address those afterwards. So who I am, my name is Kirsten Horton. I've been working at Bays for the last 2 years as a senior policy advisor. And my role is looking after the fuel poverty strategy, so updating the actual document, but I also try to work with the different teams who are trying to tackle fuel poverty and trying to make sure that we're all joined up together. So I work alongside the team that does minimum energy efficiency standards for the private rented sector. I work alongside the team that's doing the social housing decarbonization fund demonstration action. I work alongside the Green Homes Grant team, and I try to make sure that we're all joined up and connected and communicating with the rest of you as well. So to start off with, I think the headline this year has certainly been the Green Homes Grant voucher scheme. Many of you would have heard about this recently. So the scheme launched in September, but it was originally announced by the Chancellor in the summer. All households are eligible to receive up to £5,000 or up to 2/3 towards the cost of an energy efficiency or low carbon heating measure. Before households who are on a low income, they can receive up to £10,000, and that can cover the entirety of a cost towards an energy efficiency or low carbon heating measure. You can get multiple measures in there as well. So if someone needed cavity wall insulation and loft insulation and they're a low income household, they could get that completely covered. And you may have heard last week, the Prime Minister announced his 10-point plan to tackle climate change. Part of that 10-point plan was saying that we were going to extend this Green Homes Grant. So originally it was only planned to go to the end of March, and we're now extending that, I believe, for an extra year. So there will be more time and some additional funding as well for people to apply for these vouchers. We've started delivering a few of these, so a few households have received these, but we've got a lot of applications in as well. So we are processing them at the moment. There's also another aspect to the Green Homes Grant, and this is the local authority delivery portion of the Green Homes Grant. So I'm sure many of you who work at local authorities will be familiar. This is being delivered in kind of 3 phases. So phase 1A has already been completed, and we are working with those, or sorry, not completed, but the application time has closed, and we're working with those local authorities who've been successful to help them to set up their projects. Phase 1B is currently accepting applications until early December. So you still have a chance to get any applications in there. And then we will have phase 2, which will be opening after Christmas in the new year. And that will be done through local energy partnerships, working together with local authorities in their area. As well, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the energy company obligation. So that is worth £640 million per year, and it supports low-income and vulnerable households across GB. So not just in England, like the Green Homes Grant, but this is across GB. It's been a fairly long-standing program, and some of you who are maybe more familiar with it would recognize that the current scheme will go until early 2022. And the Prime Minister in the 10-point plan last week did announce that a further iteration of ECO will extend till 2026. So happy to be able to give a bit of confirmation of that. And we should be able to give a bit more detail of that hopefully in the coming months, which will be hopefully very helpful. But we will be seeing a further iteration of this through energy suppliers. As I said, I work with the team as well who works on standards in the private rented sector. So some of you may be familiar with the existing standards that landlords must make sure, landlords in England and Wales, must make sure that their privately rented property is at least energy efficiency band E, or they have a valid exemption. We're currently actually consulting right now on strengthening these standards and looking at actually requiring landlords to have a property be at least band C or else have a valid exemption. And we're consulting on having that requirement. You know, one of the ways you can have an exemption is if you spent a certain amount of money already trying to get your property to that band and it hasn't been enough, there's still more to go. We currently that's, you know, £3,500 to try to get your property up to band E. For the band C level that we're currently consulting on, we're looking at potentially having a kind of a cost cap of £10,000. After you've spent £10,000 as a landlord, then you would no longer be required to spend any more to try to get your property to band C. But we're really interested in hearing from all of you, and it is obviously out for consultation right now. We want to hear public views. So if any of you have any interest in that, if you have any views on whether those proposed regulations would be helpful or harmful, or even any questions for me, I'm happy to talk about that, but we'd be really interested in you responding to that consultation. I think there's definitely an interest in knowing from the type of people who are interested in working with fuel poverty, you know, how can we make this as helpful as possible? Some of you may also be familiar with the warm home discount. This is a £140 rebate, which is provided to more than 2 million low-income and vulnerable households each year. So for pensioners who are receiving the guaranteed credit part of pension credit, they should be receiving this normally automatically. But there are a wide variety of other households who may be eligible, and they would have to apply through their supplier. And in general, it is really helpful if you are meeting with households who are really struggling with their energy bills. Suppliers have agreed to support households who are affected by COVID-19. And in general, we've seen them doing a reasonably good job with that. We've seen a lot of very supportive suppliers. So if you are talking to a household struggling with their bills, we'd really encourage you to help them get in touch with their suppliers. I will also mention, it wasn't originally a part of my presentation, but in the Prime Minister's 10-point plan last week, he did also talk about introducing a home upgrade grant program. So this was one of the manifesto commitments that was in the Conservative manifesto. So this might be something that could potentially come in after the Green Home Grant local authority delivery or something like that, but further details are to be announced. And they also talked about extending the social housing decarbonization fund demonstrator action that they have right now. So extending that and potentially providing a bit more funding for that as well. So that's kind of a brief overview of where we're at right now and where we are looking to go over the next couple of years. And I'd be really happy to take any questions or talk through anything that I've touched on in a little bit more detail.
So we're guessing that's a no then. So are there any questions for Kirsten with what she spoke about? Again, she's provided the email and again, she sort of has flagged up bays are looking really, do look forward to receiving input on their consultation. So we can only, again, on behalf of NEA, encourage people to add to that consultation. It does make a difference sometimes, it really does.
Excuse me, can I just ask a question, please?
Yeah. Do you want to identify yourself? I've got...
Right, sorry, I couldn't say. My name's Sean Topping. I work for Affordable Warmth Office at St Helens Council.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Sean, by the way.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Sean.
just a question about the warm home discount. Even I get a little bit confused about the criteria for it, in so much as we hear that each energy company has its own criteria. And yet when you speak to the DWP, they say, well, no, more or less we give a criteria, you know, things like, as Kirsten just said, guaranteed pension credits, and which is the core group. But I'm just wondering if anybody can shed any light on this business about varying. And the only thing that seems to vary to me, and it does make a big difference, is some companies have, in my opinion, ridiculously short windows to apply for the warm home discount.
Name names, Sean.
Sorry?
Name names.
Name names, utility.
We're on for a week. Can I, just before Kirsten answers that question, can I just jump in, sorry, and I don't normally do this, but I know what you're asking, Sean. But Bays look or oversee the core group part of the warm home discount. Right. Deliver the broader group, and I think it's the broader group that you're sort of identified there. So broader group is sort of Ofgem responsible for that. Bays are obviously responsible for ensuring that core group, and core group pretty much covers it because it's data matched with the pension service. Very few sort of fall between, but they've got a wonderful telephone helpline set up, the warm home discount, which is now open, that if you come across any individuals who you think qualify for the core group, which is managed or overseen by Bays. Kirsten, sorry, do you want to jump in now? Or
sure. So I was just going to say on the broader group, I agree. It can, maybe I shouldn't say that, especially since we're being recorded, but I do agree it can be a little confusing. With the broader group, there are certain people within the broader group that energy companies have to let apply to the warm home discount. So for example, if you're on universal credit and you have a very young child or a child with a disability in your home, energy companies have to let you apply for the warm home discount. But they can also choose to extend it a little bit more broadly. They can choose to extend it to certain types of customers that Bays hasn't mandated.
Yeah, I think, Kirsten, just picking up on your point there, that's what causes the confusion. So what Ofgem do, Sean, is they set down a base of sort of criteria, but then they allow energy companies to sort of, if they so wish and are able to do, to add additions to that. And that's where we think the confusion then comes in.
Yeah, exactly, because it can vary from supplier to supplier, because they can make that choice about some choose to be, I guess you could say, maybe a little more generous in some ways. It depends on how you look at it. It extended to a wider group of people, but then on the other hand, it might run out faster. It is first come, first serve.
Yeah.
So some suppliers run out faster than other suppliers. Happy to, if you do end up in a situation where you've got kind of specific questions on kind of a specific situation, I'm happy to follow that up. If you want to send me an email, I'll put the email in the chat as well.
Yeah, thank you.
You okay with that,
Jimmy?
Sean?
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you.
Kevin, yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask one? People are always concerned about switching and saving at the moment. And if you're in the core group, is it guaranteed that if you've not had your £140 this year and you swap, you're automatically going to be eligible under the new company that you go to? Obviously, especially the big six, because that's my concern, that you can actually get people savings so we can actually try and get them out of fuel poverty. But I'm hearing that sometimes when they go to the new company, they're not then, they've already been, all the money's taken up, so they're not being eligible that year for the £140.
Okay, well, if they're in the core group, it shouldn't be about kind of all the money being taken up. So I would say that normally speaking, you should be absolutely fine, but I would want to just double check in terms of if you're kind of switching on the exact day that the core group payments go out or something. I could imagine, something going a bit wrong or something. So can I just follow that up for you? Have you had someone with that situation?
Yeah, we've had a lot of concerns over it where they've gone over to a new
People
company.
who are concerned about it.
And then they've actually turned around and said, well, no, you were due for your payment from A company and now you've gone to B company. Now, I know some of the smaller providers don't have to provide it anyway, but I'm talking about sometimes at least with the big six. So you know that their client base, it compels them to pay it.
Kevin, if you stay, and again, Kirsten, again, honestly, I very rarely do this, but again, just to make clear, Kirsten is on behalf of Bays, that's the core
Right.
group. Now, the core group, just to answer your question, I think, Kevin, the core group is protected. So if they qualify and then move to another supplier, the earlier supplier, as long as they qualify, I think it was on the 9th of July date, it's the actual, we're on a broader group, if you leave before they pay the warm home discount, you're not automatically entitled to it. But under the core group rules, if you go from British Gas to Scottish Power, British Gas, if you qualify for core group on that particular date, which I think is the 9th of July, around that date, it's British Gas that would have to pay it. They will still pay the core group.
Brilliant.
Kevin, I'm going to pick up on the warm, I wasn't going to, but I'll pick up on the warm home discount at the end when we had the support around the Northwest. I will come back. I've already made a note to come back to warm home discounts. Is that okay, Kirsten?
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate it. Like I said, I work with a lot of these different groups. I'll answer your questions as best as I can, but there might be some situations where I'll have to follow up via email. So I do appreciate that.
So again, Kirsten's popped there the Bays email address in the chat. So if there's any further questions or follow-up or information, please contact the email address directly, and hopefully they will be able to answer your questions. You okay on that one? Thanks so much for that, Kirsten. So moving swiftly on, we now move on to Matt Copeland, our policy manager. So glad to have Matt here today. He was on standby with a packed suitcase and everything, Matt, wasn't it? So I'm happy, I'm happy to have Matt along. So hopefully our wonderful team behind the scenes will now click a few buttons, and Matt will now give us our NEA policy update.
Thanks, Jimmy. I think this is my first time at NEA Northwest Fuel Poverty Forum, so I'm really pleased to be here. Thanks for having me. So Kirsten's taken us through some of the stuff that's going on at Bays. I'm going to not go through that again, but what I will do is give the NEA view on some of those things, and then I'll also talk about some of the things that are happening with Ofgem as well, and give our view, and then what's coming up as well. So I can get my slides working. Brilliant. And I assume everyone can see my slides. Jimmy, you can give me a nod.
Yeah, good.
So these are the sort of topics I'll touch on today. So the private rental sector stuff that Kirsten talked about, the release of our fuel poverty monitor, which I'll briefly talk about the findings from that. The consultation to extend the warm home discount for a year and what our views are. the spending review, which is happening tomorrow, and what NEA would like from it, and what we think might happen. The new supplier license conditions for prepayment, which is something that Ofgem have put in place for energy suppliers. And then something on water poverty, where my colleague Jess Cook has been working hard putting together a paper on debt, which I'll take you through some of the recommendations of. So firstly, private rented sector minimum energy efficiency standards. So as Kirsten said, BEI's consulting on extending the current standards for all privately rented homes to reach EPC E by this year, so that they reach EPC C by 2028, with landlords being required to spend up to £10,000 to reach the new standard. We're recommending a few things on this. So we think that we've actually come to a bit of a new conclusion in the last few days after studying the impact assessment and some of the analysis behind it. And we believe that actually there would be merit in increasing the cost cap from the proposed £10,000 to £15,000, because that would result in just a £600 spend from the average landlord, but would also upgrade 60,000 more fuel poor homes to EPCC. So we think that would be warranted in terms of increasing that cost cap. But at the same time, we think that it is quite big, it's quite a lot of money. And there's quite a lot of stick for landlords in these new regulations. And there's room for a carrot or two for them as well. So we're recommending two things. So firstly, a tax exemption for landlords purchasing energy efficiency measures. So you may remember that back in 2004, government introduced the landlord energy savings allowance. There was poor take-up, basically because there wasn't sort of regulation to drive landlords to install measures. But now there is that. And with these harsher regulations coming up, we think it would be quite a good idea to reintroduce that. And secondly, we've seen landlords being able to access things like the Green Homes grants this year. And we think that they should consider how landlords, particularly landlords with sort of affordability issues, when they try and upgrade the homes there, and that they could access grant schemes in the future. But we do think that if landlords can access those grants, they shouldn't be able to increase rents for 3 years afterwards. Within the consultation, within the impact assessment, there is an assumption that if landlords upgrade their homes, that they pay for it through rent increases. So it doesn't seem right to us that if they're paying for it through grants, they should be able to increase their rents as well. We also think there should be sort of better data infrastructure to help enforcement, such as things like a landlord database. There's currently one running in Wales that we think works quite well. And this is something that the Committee on Fuel Poverty recommended, sort of a landlord database with exemptions and things like that in it that would help local authorities to enforce. I think BEI's got some way towards that within the consultation, but not really the whole hog. So we think sort of a replication of what's happening in Wales would be really useful. So yeah, overall impression is that this is actually a really good move in the right direction, but a few tweaks can make it even better. Then on to the fuel poverty monitor. So back in the autumn, well, I suppose we're still in autumn, it doesn't feel like it, but back in September, NEA released the UK fuel poverty monitor. And this year, we focused on the pandemic, of course. What else can we focus on? So the impact that COVID-19 and the measures to combat it, that lockdown has had on fuel poor households. And we did this through working with our own advisors at NEA and sort of guys running the projects like Jimmy and others, but also asking other organisations like yourselves what you thought the issues were for householders and what could be done to help fuel poor households through a call for evidence that we issued over the summer. The 5 main sort of issues that we found, or 5 impacts that we found on householders, were increased energy use, because people are spending more time at home, and obviously that becomes more acute over winter. A reduction in income, we all know jobs being lost, being placed on furlough. those two combining to lead to increased affordability issues and debt, and that leading to energy rationing as energy debt has increased. And then something slightly different, those policies that are there to help people. So smart meter installations that upgrade prepayment meters, for example, to smarter ones where you can top up remotely, but also energy efficiency installs. We saw them both reduce over that initial lockdown period, both of which could have helped households during the pandemic. And then fifth, there were difficulties accessing support, especially where households were digitally excluded or spoke English as an additional language. So there was a lot of support available. We had the agreement between BEIS and suppliers that they should offer support, but sometimes it wasn't obvious where that was or communicated properly with households with additional needs. And to fix this, we identified 5 different themes or recommendations. Firstly, better identifying households who are in need through things like better data sharing between governments and between companies. We think that if you can identify the right people, it's easier to give the right people support. Secondly, through better raising awareness and communicating support. This is things like providing information in different languages, providing information in ways in which people who have different accessibility needs can access them and communicate them in different ways, not just using the internet to communicate them, but using sort of older school methods like post, but also sort of community billboards and things like that. Thirdly, better supporting prepayment households. And our main ask here was for Ofgem to actually put in place the protections that they have now committed to putting in place. So we've got a big tick next to that one, but there's obviously still more needs to be done to support prepayment households. Fourth, addressing utility debt. And I'll take you through our proposals when I talk about debt in the water sector later, because they're very cross-sector. And fifth, addressing hiatus in policy making. So quite understandably, BEIS and other government departments were focusing on other priorities during the pandemic and still are to a certain extent. And that has caused a sort of a block up of policies that we were expecting earlier in the year, but have been delayed until now. So we have things like the food poverty strategy, the energy white paper, and lots of other sort of big ticket items coming soon. As soon as we can get those, the better. Once we've sort of pushed the gap into the stuff that we were expecting, we should have a good strategy to build on and really help us do our work. Next, we've already spoken about the warm home discount consultation a bit, but I don't think we've spoken in depth about the government's recent consultation on extending the scheme for a year. So the current scheme ends on April the 1st or the end of March next year. So in order to ensure that the scheme continues, BEIS are consulting on a 1-year extension to the scheme, pretty much so that it would continue as it is. So the rebate side of things would pretty much be the same. So same core group, pretty much the same rules around the broader group. But then the industry initiatives portion of the scheme. So there's funding in the scheme to support things like giving energy and debt and benefits advice. They're proposing that would change slightly, and they would like to use more of that money to help clear debt more directly. So by issuing fuel vouchers to households, but also allowing suppliers to clear larger amounts of debt as well. Our thoughts can be split into 3 things, really. Firstly, that it's really, really important that this all happens and that the regulations can go through Parliament and get signed off and everything as soon as possible, so that industry initiative projects can get signed off as early as possible, and there isn't a hiatus in support for households. So we would like BEIS to try and expedite this as far as is reasonably practical. Secondly, we think that the broader changes to the scheme should be accelerated. So NEA has been campaigning for the scheme as a whole to be expanded, and for the problems that we've talked about in the broader group, where some the pot is limited essentially, and people are eligible but can't receive the discount, to fix that through saying through expanding the money available in the scheme and making sure that everyone gets an automatic payment if they're eligible. So to get rid of the applications, and we can do that through data matching, I think. So we need that to be accelerated. BEIS have been promising things like this for several years, but because of different circumstances, it's always been sort of this shorter, more simple extensions. And we think that it's time for the scheme year 22-23 should be the start of a new expanded scheme. And thirdly, those changes I talked about with regards to industry initiatives should really carefully consider the trade-offs. So we think that energy advice, debt advice, and benefits advice are often much more valuable to householders, especially in the long term, than just cash. In some cases, paying off debts or issuing fuel vouchers can be really, really important, but when it's a trade-off between them, it's a really difficult decision. So they should need to really carefully consider that. I think we come to the decision in our response that the advice is probably more valuable than the money in most circumstances. So the balance should be considered carefully. Next, onto the spending review. So spending review will be tomorrow. Chancellor will give an update on what different departments, the sort of money different departments in government have to spend on achieving their strategic aims. It will be a 1-year review, so they'll only get 1 year's worth of funding at this point because of the pandemic. We put together these 5 asks when we thought it was going to be a 3-year spending review, but actually we think a lot of them are still in play, and a lot of them there could be an indication that they're going to sort of go forward. So firstly, we'd like the government to provide urgent clarity on the future of the warm discount. We have that clarity from 21 to 22. We don't have it beyond then, so it'd be great for the Chancellor to announce something about the future of the scheme. But again, that might be outside of his gift for the 1-year review. Secondly, to fully implement the Home Upgrade Grant Scheme and Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund that Kirsten talked about earlier. Again, indication of that in the 10-point plan released last week. But we're hoping there'll be some sort of commitment towards those in the spending review, but we might have to wait a little longer than that. Third, extends the eco to 26. Have that confirmation in the 10-point plan that we've already got that. But awaiting more details. Could be more in the spending review, but again, might need to wait a bit longer. Fourth, ensuring the shared prosperity fund helps end cold homes across the UK. So the government has committed to replacing the sorts of funding that the EU provided to sort of local authorities and the devolved nations through this new thing called the Shared Prosperity Fund. And we're keen that is there not only, or that allows those devolved governments essentially to fund energy efficiency measures, because a lot of EU funding has gone towards energy efficiency across the UK over the years. And fifth, we've joined the campaign of lots of other organisations to extend and strengthen the increase to universal credit for low-income households. So this is the £20 a week extra that people have been getting during the pandemic. That's due to end in April, and we think it should be extended beyond them to give people confidence that increase will stay with them for a bit longer, and give them a greater ability to pay off the debts that they might have incurred during the period due to the extra costs that I talked about earlier. So we eagerly await tomorrow, and we'll be sending out some sort of update to our members shortly after to sort of talk about what we may have gotten and what it means in terms of all of these asks. So Jimmy said earlier, we were hoping that Ofgem would come in and talk about this, and that I'd only be commenting on it, but I'll try and take you through Ofgem's new license conditions they're implementing for energy suppliers with regards to prepayment meters and repaying debt. And this all comes about from work that they've been doing over the last 2 and a bit years to help improve the energy market for those households who have a propensity to self-disconnect for different reasons. Some because of financial reasons, some because of a bucket of other reasons. The Ofgem have been relatively proactive in trying to work out what the issues are and then trying to find solutions to it, or not solutions, but ways of making the market better. So they've identified 3 sets of things that they're going to do, and these will be implemented by the 15th of December this year. So firstly, there will be a mandation for all energy suppliers to identify pre-current meter customers that self-disconnect. And that's good for a number of reasons, but chiefly because it will mean that suppliers know which of their customers are self-disconnecting and then be able to offer them the support that's available. So that is a good thing, because at the moment they don't know which of their customers are self-disconnecting. Secondly, mandating suppliers to offer friendly, emergency and additional support credit, or as it has been referred to previously, discretionary credit. So there's basically friendly credit being friendly hours credit, so allowing top-ups in hours that the shops might not be open, for example. Emergency credit, so when your meter runs to 0, having sort of an automatic top-up, and discretionary credit or additional support credit, phoning up your supplier for that additional support, and the supplier being able to offer you extra credit for your meter at not necessarily an additional cost. They don't mandate minimum standards or minimum amounts for each of those, but they have to be offered. We wanted there to be minimum amounts, but Ofgem did not want to prescribe what that should be. Thirdly, and most importantly, because this is for all debts, not just prepayment debts, they want to integrate the ability to pay principles into the supplier license. And these mean that suppliers will have appropriate credit management policies and guidelines, make proactive contact with customers regarding debt, understand each individual customer's ability to pay debt, and that is financial ability to pay as well. They'll have to set repayments rates based on that ability to pay to ensure that the customer understands the arrangement, then monitor that arrangement, and if the customer defaults or there's a failed repayment arrangement, re-engage with that customer and go through that process again. The really important thing here is that they'll have to set repayment rates based on the ability to pay. So I'm sure many of you would have come across circumstances at the moment where suppliers have set debt repayment rates at unaffordable rates for households. They just won't be able to do that anymore. And if they have done that, they've breached their license condition as of December 15th. We've seen some suppliers going early on this. I think we've come across E.ON. I think that probably others as well started doing this, but it just goes to show that suppliers take this seriously, and that hopefully this will lead to better outcomes for lots of different customers. Lastly, this is our report on debt. So Jessica is our lead on water poverty, but this is really on the debt landscape across water, energy and council tax. And it goes through looking at the scale of debt and how it affects people, and the impacts of the pandemic, all of that sort of thing. But there's 5 main recommendations from the report. Firstly, bringing forward breathing space, regulation and extending the respite period offered. So this is new legislation that is coming in next year that will give households more time to pay off debt. Essentially, we think that should come in earlier and that they should have even more time to pay off debt. Secondly, the UK government should make contributions for payment matching schemes. So in water, there are some payment matching schemes where a household can make payments to clear their debt, and the water company will match that potentially. We think the government should be able to provide some money into those schemes as well, in energy too. Those ability to pay principles I just talked about should be consistent across all utilities. For optimizing data matching to ensure that that the priority service register is shared across utilities, and acting on the Digital Economy Act to share data more effectively between government and utilities as well, to ensure that support is offered to customers moving into financial difficulties at the earliest possibility. And then lastly, all utility companies considering how a single definition of severe indebtedness can help those households who are most in need. I definitely going to read this report. It's really good. I haven't done justice there, but there's a lot of narrative around these recommendations, and it just really well articulates them and explains them perfectly. So a few things coming up. As I said, a lot of policy stuff's been backed up to the last quarter of this year, going into next year now. But these are the really important things. So we've got the CSR tomorrow, or the spending review tomorrow, where we might find some new stuff out. Shortly after that, we're expecting the new decarbonising heat and building strategy from BEIS, which will set out how they intend to decarbonise buildings, including fuel poor homes. Speaking of fuel poor homes, we've got the new fuel policy strategy, which Kirsten talked about. And we've got a few other things. So we've got a national infrastructure strategy coming out next year, which will include infrastructure priorities for reaching net zero. We have final determinations for gas networks to decide how much money they'll be able to charge their customers for the years 21 to 26, and also how much money they can spend on helping vulnerable households during that period as well. So that's quite an important one. And that's in the middle of December that happens. And then the last one, the Treasury are currently doing a net zero review, which is looking at basically how we pay to get to net zero and who pays for that. Obviously that's important because it will determine how much money fuel poor households will have to put into reaching net zero. So yeah, I think I've definitely run over my time, so I really do apologise for that, Jimmy. But hopefully that's okay. And hopefully that was useful for people in sort of understanding NEA's view on these things.
No, that's fine, Matt. Don't worry about the time. I've got wriggle room in my agenda. Again, any questions for Matt?
Yes, could I just ask a quick question, please?
By all means, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I certainly haven't heard of this for a long time. But are there any occasions where people are actually disconnected these days from electricity supply?
So people shouldn't be
completely gone, is it?
People shouldn't be disconnected. They certainly shouldn't be disconnected during a pandemic. So
Yeah.
often we set out new rules where suppliers shouldn't disconnect people. I think there were sort of single or double figures disconnections last year. Very, very infrequent, but yeah, self disconnections are much more
No, of course, yeah.
common. So I think millions of people self disconnect, so run their meters run to zero, and they don't have any energy to use essentially.
Right.
Yeah, just picking up on Matt's point, we are down to disconnections last year recorded by Ofgem as 7, but only 7 disconnections. But Matt's point is quite correct. The problem, we've got the flip side on that, the self disconnections. But Ofgem are looking at this quite seriously at the moment. On the back of a wonderful report, I think, provided by Citizen Advice. But they are looking seriously, and it comes under this prepayment protection that they're bringing in on the 15th of December. I'll be coming back to that on the summing up. Matt, thanks an awful lot for that. Any more questions for
Jimmy?
Matt?
Sorry, I've got one if that's okay. It's about the changes to the license conditions you mentioned about utilities having they've got to identify customers that self-disconnect, and then on the line below you mentioned that there was they had to offer emergency credit. I'm assuming that those two policies are linked together, and they don't have to just say last month we identified this number, and then they're only offering that support to people who still phone up.
So that support has to go to every prepayment customer, not just those who self-disconnect.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is utility companies, they're going to be obliged to find or identify people that are self-disconnecting. Are they then obliged to contact them and offer that support that they're also obliged to offer to everyone?
So not necessarily through those new license conditions, but if they do identify someone as vulnerable, So if they have identified someone as self-disconnecting because they have a certain financial situation, and that they're self-disconnected for long periods of time and it's dangerous, then they have an obligation to contact them and offer them things like energy advice and all that sort of jazz. So elsewhere in the license, there is that, but it's just how it links together.
That was, I mean, I didn't want to assume too much, but it just seems crazy that there's a license that might, or a new license, a new condition saying that they're having to identify people that are self-disconnecting, but then that could be a week, 2 weeks, a month later that they perhaps offering the support. You know, what's happening in that period where it seems crazy that there's that new improvement, what should be an improvement, but then it's just not.
Yeah, it's just how it links into different parts of the license. Essentially, they don't like replicating other bits in the new bits, so they do have an obligation to treat people fairly and to ensure that if they do identify someone who's vulnerable, they act on that. But that is not in this new license condition explicitly.
Right. Thank you.
Let's stick with us, because as I say, I'll pick up on the ability to pay actually on the summing up at the end of this forum. I think it's a game changer, but hopefully I'll answer your question on the summing up with the ability to pay stuff. That will link with what Matt's just been talking about. Is that okay? Any other questions for Matt? Just pop in the chat box and we'll move swiftly on. Lewis, good morning to you. I am so sorry I wasn't there and sort of said good morning formally to you. Lewis is now going to give a presentation about his organisation with regards to solar. So again, sit back and enjoy. This is the future.
Morning all. So I'm Lewis Casely. I'm the commercial manager at Solar Capture Technologies. Eradicating fuel poverty has always been an important issue, which has been made more difficult with the current situation. But for us, we want to take this opportunity to build in products that will not only help poor fuel families, but to reduce carbon emissions significantly, not just immediately, but in years to come. A major misunderstanding with solar is that it only works in sunny parts of the world. Solar energy is readily available and it's easy to predict. We know what time the sun will rise and set for the next million years, which is different to wind and other renewable sources. However, a mix of all renewable technologies is what we need to reduce CO2 emissions globally. So a brief introduction to solar capture and our background. We originated within the science of photovoltaics. We were BP Solar's R&D department before becoming the National Renewable Energy Centre. So during that time, we had a team made up of doctors of physics and chemists with a keen sort of interest in innovation, working on research projects all around the world within universities and research institutes. So at one stage, we held 3 world records in solar cell efficiency. Now we're a commercial manufacturing company who manufacture bespoke solar solutions to OEM customers at our facility in Blythe. We had in Northumberland. So we had the local MP up there who said it were one of the best kept secrets up there, which is good and bad because we're sort of academically, we're very well known, but commercially not so much yet. So we're solar experts who work with OEM customers to develop practical solutions that make a real difference. So products that you might recognize would be all of the emergency roadside telephones up and down the highways. We manufacture solar for them. The 2 largest parking ticket machines around the world, we supply them globally with their solar. We supply all the offshore ACE navigations around the UK seas with solar modules. So that says quite a lot about how the quality of the modules because they're surviving in those harsh conditions. So it's moving on. We were approached a few years ago by a company called Sono Motors, which is a German car manufacturer. Based on sort of the work that we've done in the past with research institutes, they said, right, we're designing a car, we want it to be powered by solar, can you help? So using sort of current automotive materials such as ABS, we manufactured solar into the fabric of the body panels of the vehicle. And every panel is being used to generate energy. So these are sort of high efficiency cells on the doors, on the bonnet, on the roof, which are actually able to extend the vehicle range by 34 kilometers per day just using the sun's energy. So the sun's there. This technology allows us to use it where it hasn't been used before. So because of that move or because of that technology that we developed with solar motors, we thought, right, well, there's opportunity here to use solar where it's not being used before. If you could just move on to the next slide, please. So what we do is we create complete efficiency, not just the cell efficiency. I think a lot of people know a little bit about solar and know a little bit about solar technology and what percentage cell or how efficient certain cell technologies are. But if you're not able to capture the complete energy from in the solar module and translate it into a battery storage or a usable form of energy, then it's not worth having the newest technology. So what we do is we use the latest cell technology and maximize the amount of efficiency that we generate into the system. If you go to the next slide. So we've got a range of applications that this product's going to be used for. So in theory, any surface that has exposure to sunlight could have solar cladded on it to generate power. So there's an ever increasing demand of energy on the grid. How can we find ways to offset that? There's all these new talks about electric cars in the next sort of 10 years. And where's this energy going to come from to power these and to charge these electric cars? This technology is going to provide a solution for that. Next slide, please. So what we have designed is...
Sorry about this. I've just got someone on the chat. Can you just explain what the term OEM is, please?
Sorry, that's original equipment manufacturer. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like a parking ticket machine company, or Sono Motors would be the OEM for the vehicle. Yeah, so the product that we've designed is a resin encapsulated solar module. So effectively a normal solar module that you'd see on your house would have sort of a backing sheet, then you'd have cells, and then you'd have a glass layer on top of that, which would then need to be framed. The idea of this resin encapsulated module is a quarter of the weight of traditional, actually move on to the next slide, please. It's a quarter of the weight of traditional solar, and it doesn't need to have a frame. So this technology has been designed alongside a research institute in Spain. So like I said, it's a quarter of the weight of traditional solar, which makes it available in industries where it was never available before. The reason solar is not on cars at the minute is because solar is too heavy. And it wasn't efficient enough with different newer technologies. So this technology is maintaining the efficiency of whatever the highest quality cells are, but it's a quarter of the weight. So things that have really sort of taken off since we've developed this technology, automotive sector, sub-Saharan Africa, because the technology is lightweight and we can manufacture it in a bespoke manner, it's easy to transport, so we can fit it into helicopters, etc. And for building integrated PV, which is more relevant here, there's no need to alter or strengthen or reinforce your current infrastructure to add this solar onto the building. So we're working with Northumberland Council at the minute, and there's a number of houses that they've been able to sort of use solar for on their buildings, but there's a number that haven't been able to, just due to sort of the structures need to be reinforced. So you can retrofit this solar, but also you can, a better option would be added onto new builds. So due to the bespoke mechanical properties, you can add it onto any surface and it's not limited to the roof. So some people have heard about thin film solar in the past, and you might have heard of this Tesla solar roof tile. So the thin film solar first, that's very low weight, but it's also low efficiency. This is low weight, but it's maintaining the current efficiency. And also with this sort of Tesla roof tile, it looks great, but it's very low efficiency. Again, our plan is, or our product is high efficiency with the same sort of benefits. If you can just move on to the next slide, please. So this is sort of what the product is there. You can see what we'll be doing is we'll be covering the entire roof in PV. So a traditional solar may cover about 20% of the roof. This is covering 100% of the roof. The theory behind it is, why build a roof, then add something on top of it, having two skins rather than one, if you can design roof coverings itself to generate electricity for not a huge increase in cost. It's like the solar face product is, the roof is made out of solar. A traditional roof, you're going to have to buy the slates, you're going to have to install the slates, then you're going to have to take them off, and then you're going to have to put the PV on. So if you already have a re-roofing program within local authorities where you're putting scaffolding up, make it cost effective, you can do everything at the same time. You can implement these roofs onto the buildings. So sort of proper planning can reduce cost and minimize the carbon cost. Yeah, if you could just move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, so this is sort of what it looks like, comparison to sort of a traditional roof. So the same amount of time to install a traditional roof as it is to install this solar face, if not less. The product has all of the benefits of the normal roof and has been through all of the tests with wind loading, with impact tests, but it's producing energy. The next slide, please. I think the next few we can sort of skip through. So this is just how we install roofs. So we've got a test site in Belgium and one in Spain, and we're looking to have a number more up in the northeast. The installation process is relatively straightforward. And yeah, that just is a quick overview of how we installed it there. And there's a little video on this side. I don't know if it'll actually play, but to be honest, it's not great. It's just showing us actually install the roof and a few of the finer details.
Lewis, while this is running, another question we've got. You're very popular on the chat, Lewis. How weather, one from Suzanne Barningham from Energy Works, how weather secure our solar PV roofs?
Yeah, completely. It's exactly the one that we've had in Belgium. Every test that you do for a normal roof, we've done to the solar roof, and it's passed everything. We've got wind loading, suction tests, all of the impact tests, all of the normal PV tests as well that you need to pass.
Lovely. And one more, believe it or not, another question. This is from Shell Conroy. So is the whole roof covered, not just one side? And how does that compare cost-wise?
Yeah, so the whole roof would be covered. The theory is the entire building could be covered. You could cover both sides. So an example is we've had quite a bit of interest from the vertical farming industry with this. So there's a number of people that have got in touch with us as a result of this product. So vertical farming has a massive requirement for energy, and it's something that's growing within the UK as well. So the company that I'm talking about in particular, they want to clad their entire building. So they want to maximize the amount of energy that they get, because even if it reduces their costs slightly, it's still a huge increase in saving. But things like there's so many opportunities, there's so many buildings, so many signs, so many walkways that are available to be used. Yeah. This technology would allow you to use that to generate energy.
Right, I'm not going to apologise for this, Lewis. I've got a couple more questions for you, if that's okay, off the chat. Again, quite an obvious one from Alison. Do they have a lifespan?
Exactly. So everything that we've tested is comparable to a normal roof. Yeah.
Right.
So, just on that one, another thing. Solar itself is not really a product that you can recycle. The reason being, glass and the solar PV cells have got a very similar melting point. So once you've manufactured and you've laminated solar together, it's really difficult to separate it, to recycle it. This product that we're talking about, because it's a resin encapsulated module, there's two different melting points, which means that at the end of the life, you're going, which it's something that not many people really think about now, but at the end of the product's life, you're going to be able to melt them on separate and separate it and recycle them separately and reuse materials as well.
Right, so you're getting a proper grill in here today, Lewis, and I hope you're okay with it. Last question, insurance companies recognise them?
So, sorry, I didn't get that.
Do insurance companies recognise them?
Yeah, so just quickly, so I'll just go on to the next to sort of go through that. If you nip on to the next slide, that's just a quick sort of process for installing. If you go on the next slide again. So basically, these are the tests that we've done. So in terms of sort of insurance, where we're at now with this product is we've developed the product. We're upgrading our factory as we speak. So originally we had, like I said, we came from R&D. So we used to do sort of heavy R&D and pilot manufacturing. Because we have had like so much interest in sort of manufacturing in the UK, we're investing in the factory quite significantly. So we're going to be able to produce sort of 400,000 or 500,000 modules at our facility in Blythe per year. And that's all happening at the minute. So in terms of sort of the product itself will be available to the market in probably September in 2021. We've got 2 pilot sites at the minute, which have been out there for 6 years. And yeah, it will be fully insured, the exact same way as normal solar will. And yeah, we're looking at all the opportunities that we can sort of use to sort of get it into the market. The live trials that we've got currently have had brilliant results. And I think the point is, whatever the latest technology is, we're always going to be there with this product. Because cell technology increases in efficiency every single year. There's a newer one, but it's plateauing a little bit now. But whatever the latest is, that's what we're going to be able to do. So the idea of manufacturing it all here in the UK, it's a carbon effective solution to manufacture, where you're going to use it. Manufacture in the UK, to use in the UK, sort of promoting UK jobs, UK installers, rather than what we do now, which PV sort of talked about a lot, but the majority of the people buy PV modules from Asia. And there's a huge carbon cost getting modules from Asia all the way to the UK to be then installed here in the UK. But also, because PV was taking off a number of years ago, there's a massive over manufacturing of PV, which means that it's driven down the price so much. So the cost of PV at the minute is probably the lowest it's ever been.
Just one more question, please, Lewis. Again, Sean's asked the direction of the building, e.g., for example, north-south. Does that have any sort of significance?
Yeah, of course. I mean, ideally, you want a south-facing building. You're going to be able to generate more energy, but there's still light on the other side of the building, which will pick up energy. There's options to just clad one side of the building. There's a lot of options, and it's sort of a case-by-case basis that you will take it on. But yeah, in theory, you're going to get more energy generation from the sunnier part of the building, but you will also generate energy from the other sides too.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's it, actually. Yeah, that's all from my side.
Right, Lewis, thanks so much. And obviously generated quite a bit of interest there. Again, the slides or the presentation will be on the NEA website. And again, am I okay to say, Lewis, that any sort of further information or questions, you can come direct to you after the forum?
Yeah, of course.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Which brings us nicely to our cover break. Right, hopefully everyone is refreshed. We're doing all right for time, actually, which I'm really pleased at. So what we've done is, and again, I said in the introduction, we've done this sort of turn back. So we've looked at the future. So a couple of things within base that I'm quite pleased. Certainly the private rented sector with the further consultation on the minimum energy efficiency standards. Hopefully something will come out of that. NEA will continue pushing both government and Ofgem to improve the energy market for households. With your support as well. We couldn't do half the stuff without the support of organisations and the work that you do, that we can use as evidence to hopefully persuade government and Ofgem to improve things for individual households out there. And finally, with Lewis on the solar capture, again, from a personal point of view, I found that really sort of interesting. I don't know, John, I think Lewis has had to leave us, but to me, from a personal comment, do you know what swings it for me? It looks nice. Again, you can do as much sort of cost and generate energy and reduce carbon emissions. One of the things that you will get from householders is about solar panels, or solar panels is, well, it doesn't look nice. That's a big selling point, actually. But again, it is the future. The government hopefully is going to take this serious. All the organisations in this room have always taken it seriously. Hopefully we'll get there in the near future. So that's the future sorted, hopefully. We are now going to look at the here and now. Again, probably all the people in the room, when we get to about this time of the year, we know what's usually coming with winter. But again, it's looking a lot bleaker to get through this year. So again, what we're going to be looking at in this next part of the forum is what's out there for households. What can we do as organisations to support households? So hopefully what we're going to start off with is Amanda is going to give us an energy redress update and also future plans of what's on offer or how EST are going to support organisations and households going forward. We will then have quick talks from Suzanne Barningham from Energy Works in Greater Manchester as to what's available out there in Greater Manchester. John Griffiths is going to cover Merseyside and from what Energy Projects Plus support out there with householders. And then we have Carol, I forgot your name, second name, Carol Quinn, United Utilities is going to give us an overview on what support United Utilities do. And again, not because Carol's sitting in front of me, but again, United Utilities, in my opinion, ahead of the game on an awful lot. And if anyone's attended their conferences that they've had over the last 2 years, the affordability conferences, they listen. And without sounding too much like Boris Johnson here, we heard, we listened, and we carried it out. So again, Carol will be giving us an overview of United Utilities. I will be picking up on a couple of points, seeing what Sean raised and then Chris Baker from St. Helens raised with regards to warm home discounts. For those of you who get our fuel debt bulletin updates, one was issued about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we flagged it up as an area of concern on warm home discounts. I've got a little bit more of an update that I've got from Ofgem and Bays today that I'll be sharing with you, and it will be coming back to match point on the ability to pay. I think hopefully, fingers crossed, it's a big game changer. So with that, we'll move swiftly on. So again, we'll invite Suzanne to unmute herself and let us know what Energy Works are doing to support their householders across Greater Manchester. Suzanne, over to you.
I thought it was Amanda first.
I'm just saving time. We will mute Suzanne. Thanks, Suzanne. I got carried away with myself there being ahead of time. Thanks for sort of correcting me. Suzanne's muted herself. Amanda, I am so sorry for putting you into a panic there.
No, it's not a problem.
With the click of a button, invite Amanda to do her presentation.
Yeah, great. Hang on a minute. Let me just share the screen. Is that sharing just the presentation?
Yep.
Yeah, brilliant. Great. Well, thanks, Jimmy, for inviting me along again. I must have done all right the first time. I'm starting to really feel part of the Northwest gang now. So thank you for that. My name's Amanda Megson. I am a development officer for the Energy Saving Trust, looking after the energy redress scheme. Nice to see some familiar faces, and hopefully you'll learn something new from this. If you haven't heard about energy redress already, then hopefully this will encourage you to find out a little bit more. It's not going to be very long, just a quick update and sort of where we are. There we go. Sorry, it took a while. So just in terms of, if you don't know what energy redress is, it is a fund that is from the Ofgem redress, from Ofgem regulated companies. So that mainly is energy companies, and it collects payments when they've maybe breached rules, that becomes available within a big funding pot that is then available to charities to distribute. So because it is depends on the investigations that are happening at the time, and what has happened, we never quite know what's going to be in the pot. So we do review that on a quarterly basis, usually January, April, July and October, to see how much is in that pot, and then we will set a funding round accordingly. It is open to registered charities and housing associations that are exempt charities only. We do understand that there are lots of other organisations out there who are doing fuel poverty work and who are capable of running these sorts of projects, but unfortunately that is an Ofgem rule that we can't change. We have fed back about this. But we are open to partnerships. So if you are a different entity, a community interest company, something like that, and you maybe just want to form a partnership with a charity, as long as that charity are the lead for the project, then that works okay. So that's one way for other organisations to get involved in a redress project. It's open to charities and housing associations across England, Scotland and Wales. but you must be registered with Redress initially. So you can register on the website, and the details will be coming up at the end. But make sure that you're registered with us. There's a few due diligence tests to go through, and once you're registered, you'll be informed about all of the information with the funding rounds that are coming up. The priorities mainly for the scheme are around supporting energy consumers in vulnerable situations, but we do often have an innovation pot that is around supporting energy consumers sort of more generally. In terms of what Redress can fund, that it can be capital or revenue funding. It can be up to 100% of the project cost, although match funding always looks great in an application, particularly for sort of your larger housing associations. If you can show that you're committed and there's the match funding in there, that looks good. Projects can be any length up to a maximum of 24 months. We usually set a minimum and maximum grant amount for each funding stream. So you do need the latest information to know what that is for each round. Traditionally, the minimums have been 20,000 as a guide. But the projects have been up to about $1 million. Kind of importantly, especially for some of the smaller charities that are maybe looking at redress funding, that grants are paid quarterly in arrears on receipt of your sort of progress report. So that is, you know, quite a big deal for some small charities too. It's something to bear in mind. In terms of what we can't fund, that is any sort of activity that will benefit Ofgem regulated companies. So unfortunately, that does rule out anything that's sort of within the scope of ECO, because that's already sort of being funded. A renewable heat incentive, things like that. It also means that anything around sort of warm homes discount and priority services register, although you can use the funding to highlight the importance of them, and we do recognise how important they are when dealing with fuel poverty, the actual application shouldn't be made with funding from redress, so that would need to be referred on to another organisation or internally that's funded in a different way. In terms of where we are right now, round 9 had about £6.5 million in it, and that closed earlier this month. So we are right in the middle of assessing and shortlisting. Our independence grant panel will be meeting in early December, and successful projects should know the outcome a bit later on in December. So in terms of the next round, which would be round 10, that's likely to open in January 2021. So now is a good time to be having a think about maybe a project that you're interested in running or forming those sort of partnerships that we mentioned. Projects that put an application in around that time, they would be looking to start around April. So that's something to have your sort of mind around, that's when the projects would roughly be starting. We are still finalising the final details for round 10. We often have a small grants fund, a main fund, and then an innovation fund. So it's likely to be something like that, but we will be announcing the details as soon as we have them. But do look out, because we have a new fund that's on its way. I can't say a huge amount at this point, but it is very imminent that we are going to be announcing a new fund, a different fund that will be opening fairly soon, that will be running a little bit outside of the normal route, and then it will join back in later next year. So do look out for that. What we do have open at the moment is the crisis fund. So we started the crisis fund as a direct response to COVID. We have ran 4 rounds so far. We had 10 million overall in the pot for this, and this is a fund that was basically covering support for people on prepayment meters. So the fund itself would cover the cost of the fuel vouchers, the administration per voucher that the fuel voucher providers charge, plus a charity admin fee that could be up to 15% maximum of the total cost of the vouchers. So round 5 is open currently. There's £3.9 million in the pot. The grant size, we have increased slightly from the previous ones. We've had to have a look at the first 4 rounds and look at how best it is run. So we have increased that. So the minimum now is £50,000 up to a maximum of £400,000. And like I said, it's to support people who are on prepayment meters, who are disconnected or at risk of disconnection and have in some way been affected by the pandemic. The deadline for that is the 30th of November at 5 p.m. So coming up, but still time to put an application in if you're interested. Very much looking for people to partner up. If you do think that that's maybe a little bit too much for one organisation, then if organisations maybe in a geographical area can get together and put in a joint bid, that would be excellent. Part of this round is that we would be looking for the successful grantees to take referrals from other organisations across the country. So hopefully if you aren't able to go for this grant fund, you still will have access to make referrals in for your clients to be able to get vouchers. The crisis fund, because it was an emergency fund that was set up quite quickly, isn't through the normal redress charity dashboard where normally all the application is done online. This is a Word document, so you will need to have been sent that so that you can complete that and email it back into us. But again, you have to be registered with redress to be able to make an application to the fund. I just wanted to give a bit of advice, and I've taken something that Jimmy liked from last time and made it more part of the main presentation. In terms of if you're thinking about a project to redress, some advice, some just words of wisdom. We get a lot of advice applications, so it's the work that we know works well for clients and it's what they need, that one-to-one support, but we do get a lot of them. So if you can have a think about how you can stand out from the crowd, that's brilliant, whether that's around a specific target audience or the way that you're going to deal with them directly, or it's a partnership. Yeah, something that maybe makes you stand out. Be clear about the benefits and the difference the project will make. We know that you are working so hard on the ground and you've been doing it for many, many years. You have the evidence behind you. So just show us, you know, how the project's going to make a difference to the people and the evidence you've got to back that up. Think collaboration rather than competition. Like I say, we don't want to duplicate anything that's happening. We know there's people out there doing amazing work to address fuel poverty. So, you know, do that research, find out who's working in your area, make those links and make those projects as holistic as you can. You can be concise in the application form. I think people worry about using bullet points, but actually it's sometimes a better way to fill in the application. If you can just get your point across quite quickly and break it down, it makes it easier to read. And do get somebody to have a look at it before you submit. Find a critical friend or somebody within the organisation who maybe doesn't know the application that you're writing, and get them to have a look through it. That works really well. And of course, we can't get through, you know, presentations these days without mentioning COVID multiple times, but we don't know how long this is going to last. We don't know about the restrictions. Everything changes on a weekly basis. So do consider the impact of COVID on the project. You know, even though these projects could be lasting for 2 years, have a think about if you know, what you would do if it came back or restrictions persisted. So quick summary, do register if you haven't registered with us, and that'll keep you up to date with all of the latest information. You can do that on the website there. Have a read of the guidance. We've wrote guidance and feedback documents for people, and literally as you're writing your application, have that guidance open at the appropriate page. It's there to help you write the best application that you can. Again, do research what is already happening in the area. We have a lot of redress projects now that are running. I think we have 110 projects running across the country and plenty of them in the North West. So there is a whole list of the projects that are funded on the website, and there is a map so you can have a look. So do have a peek and see what's happening. And do follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We're about to start a Facebook page as well. So yeah, it's a good way to get the latest news quite quickly. And I just wanted to mention that Energy Saving Trust have just updated their website, and I think it's really user-friendly. It's got a lot more advice and more practical tips for people to take on. So it could be useful as part of your advice project. So do check out Energy Savings Trust's updated website. And I'm here for questions. So if you've got any now, great. If you want to put them in the chat, put them in the chat. I'll be looking at that later, and I can do that. If you'd like to get in touch with me later on, that's not a problem. My email address is there and my mobile is there. We do have a team email address as well, so to make sure somebody always picks that up. I tend to look after the projects that are in Northern England and Scotland, but yeah, it doesn't matter. Just drop us an email or use the team email address. And the website is there too. So hopefully I was trying to keep you on track, Jimmy. I've managed to do that. But yeah, I'm happy to take a couple of questions now if we've got time for that.
Amanda, we have plenty of time. I say I've built in the room on that one. So again, as Amanda's just said, if you want to pop anything in the chat, or Amanda is quite happy for people to contact them direct. Amanda, thanks so much for that. You do know you're making a lot for your own back, and each time you've been to one of these forums, you come with useful stuff. You could become a regular slot on our forum, if that's okay.
That's what I'm trying for, yeah.
I will be back to you. Thanks for that, Amanda. As stated, you can pick up on the chat, and I know Amanda is more than happy for people to contact her direct. So moving swiftly on, and hopefully I've got this right this time. I just got carried away myself talking about the future, and I skipped part of the time. So again, we're going to hand over to Suzanne now, correctly this time, who's going to give us a brief talk on the work that Energy Works are doing in Great Manchester and what's available to households. Over to you, Suzanne.
Hi everybody. Hope you're all right. Sorry, I don't really do PowerPoints. It's not my bag at all. So you're just going to have to listen to me, I'm afraid. It's really good actually to see some faces on here that I've not seen for ages. Actually, hi Alison. It's just this is why I love these forums, because you get to meet and network and see people again, which is really, really good, because when we sat in our kitchens and stuff, it can get a little bit overwhelming sometimes. Just to let you know, we do cover, I'm Suzanne Banning, so I'm the manager of the Energy Works team at Groundwork Greater Manchester. So we offer energy efficiency support to people who are homeowners, social tenants, and private tenants as well. So it covers all tenures, and it covers 7 of the 10 local authorities. So the 3 authorities we're not in is Oldham, Wigan and Bolton. And the reason for that is because they have their own energy efficiency teams within house. So we support the rest of the local authorities. Jimmy mentioned earlier that there's nobody here from Lancashire, but actually we do cover East Lancs as well. We've just been successful in Groundwork UK. So Groundwork is a trust. Groundwork Greater Manchester is a trust. We're part of a federation of groundworks that are up and down the country. So Groundwork UK is based in Birmingham, and with them we've been working with Cadent, and we've won some money to actually cover East Lancs. So that project is starting. So if there's anybody in East Lancs, please get in touch with me, because we need to know, it's a new area that we're going into. We need to know referral routes in and out. We need to know where your customers are, where the support is required. So I will share my contact details at the end of this as well. We do have some other redress funding as well that actually covers Burnley. Now, since lockdown, it's been horrendous. So anyone who's frontline workers will know that usually if you're in people's houses and you go into people's houses and you're chatting to people, you have a much better communication, because people read body language before they read words. So since lockdown, we've not been able to go into people's houses, obviously. We are still doing some home visits, but only where we really need to. But all of our contracts came to a stop. purely because they were all frontline worker home visits, sorry. So we've had to go shouting and begging for funding so we can actually set up a telephone call service. So we do have now a telephone call service, and we've now got a free phone number for customers, which I will share as well. It's also for frontline workers where you can get in touch with us. On these calls, what we do is we talk to customers about behaviour advice in the home, how they're saving energy, how to save energy, top tips, things like that. It's not just about gas and electric, and I think this is really important, to be honest. People assume that the work that we do, and also not just myself, but the likes of Dom as well, all we do is gas and electric. We don't. Usually when you go into somebody's house or you're talking to them on the phone, the fact that they've run out of electric isn't the primary issue. The reason they've run out of electric is a secondary issue to what's actually happening within the home. So it's building that trust with the customers, and it's finding out what's actually going on so we can make them referral routes out. So we do have multiple calls with customers. We deal with a lot of debt. We're dealing with a lot of energy companies now who have also had to change the way that they work, which has become quite difficult sometimes. So, for example, there are certain energy companies that you can be on hold for an hour and a half and then they just cut you off. You can be talking to somebody and you ask to be put through to complaints team because they're just not helping at all. Whether that's a training issue or capacity issue, I don't know. And then they'll cut you off, and it turns out they don't actually have a complaints team. There's a lot of stuff going on at the moment with the energy companies that I'm not really going to get into because this call's recorded. I won't have a rant. But we also, we're working with, Jill's on the call, Jill Hendry from Electricity North West. We work with Electricity North West on their priority service register customers as well. They're very good at sending me the complex cases, aren't you, Jill? So at the moment, one case in particular, she was referred to us through Electricity North West, and the reason being is her electric fire, it's a 79-year-old lady who lives on her own. Her electric fire stopped working, so she dialed 999 because she didn't know what else to do. She had no other form of heating. So the emergency services put her through to Electricity North West, who then sent an engineer out, who then got hold of their vulnerability team and said, we need some support for this lady. Turns out she's got over 30 cats in the property. She don't let them out. There's not a litter tray in sight. It's all happened since lockdown because she became so lonely, she wanted company. So all these cats are now breeding in a house and making a mess throughout the property. So what we've done is we've been working with the RSPCA for the cats because they've all got respiratory conditions due to the conditions of the property. The lady also has respiratory condition. We've now got the cats out of the property, and I'm working with One Manchester as well. So Maxine Stiller is on the call as well, and she's been a brilliant support with this lady. So we brought One Manchester in, who have then brought Manchester City Council in, and we're now doing a deep clean of the property, getting the furniture sorted, getting some skips arranged to clear out a lot of the stuff. We've referred her through a heart referral for a new washing machine through Leap. And we've also been in touch with Caden about replacing the gas cooker, because also this lady hasn't had cooking facilities since lockdown. So she's actually buying already cooked frozen chicken that she's defrosted in a pan on the side, and that's what she's eating. So as much as that was a wonderful presentation from Lewis, and I think it really was, but the customer base that we're dealing with, that's a million years away for them. It's not even an option for them at the moment, renewables, and which is a real shame. So we have, I'm going to go through them now because I will start rambling and Jimmy will start kicking me virtually. So
we're going to be leaving any minute, just Suzanne.
All right, no worries. So across Greater Manchester, we have the LEAP contract. So that's a local energy advice project, and that's across GM. On that, we have the Echo Fund, which is for owner-occupiers to replace broken boilers for free if they qualify. The Eco Fund, so we've got access to Eco as well through LEAP. The Heart Fund, which is replacing appliances, so that's electric cooker, fridge, freezers, and washing machines. And Nest as well, which is your thermostatic valve. We're working with, like I said, Electricity North West with priority service register customers. We've had quite a lot of referrals so far. They're coming in thick and fast, to be honest. We've just started a new project with Caden, which covers Greater Manchester and East Lancs. My colleagues at Groundwork CLM, which is Cheshire, Lancashire and Merseyside, are covering West Lancashire on that project as well. We have the Big Energy Saving Network, which we have 2 champions who are working with customers to give energy advice and behavioural advice. And then we've got the regional as well, where we're working with frontline workers offering training. So I'm a regional officer along with Dom from EPP on that. So if you've got any frontline workers that you want training, or you can put us in touch with anybody, please do that. And it's the whole of the Northwest, that, so it's not just GM or Merseyside. We have the Step In project, which is a European project where we're working with parts of Hungary and Greece as well. Greater Manchester is being used as a living lab to see how we use energy. So that's coming to a close. We've got working with the Greater Manchester Combined Renewables team. So they've installed solar panels and wind farms in schools across Salford. So now we're working with parents and communities around there to help them save energy in the home as well. I've mentioned the Burnley work that we're doing, and we've also just signed up with Manchester City Council on the Green Homes Grant Scheme that they've won under LAD. Stacey Cohen is actually on the call somewhere as well. From Manchester City Council. So they're looking at air source heat pumps and external wall insulation. So that's just a few of the projects that we're running. We do tend to rob Peter to pay Paul when we're working with customers. We get freebies all over the place all the time from different places, especially Electricity Northwest and Caden. We've so far, since April to October, we have completed 1,316 calls. So that's 1,316 families, not calls. We're doing multiple calls with some of them. And so far, we've saved those people £73,720. So we can do more. We know we can do more. We want to work with more agencies because multi-agency working at the moment is becoming really apparent. And obviously with COVID at the moment, there's a lot more people in this situation. We're meeting people that we would never have met if COVID hadn't have hit. These are people who have lost their jobs, families with 2 incomes, no longer got the 2 incomes because they've all been made redundant. So we're working with a lot of families who are losing their homes as well. There's a lot of emphasis, and rightly so, on food banks and food parcels that are being sent to people. But a lot of the time, what we're finding when we speak to food banks and agencies that are delivering food parcels is they're not asking how they can cook it. So do you have gas? Do you have electric? Do you use a microwave? What do you need that support? So we've got a lot of food banks on board now who are actually putting our leaflets in to see if customers will contact us. We're not having much luck off that because customers are interested in where the next meal's coming from. And then a lot of the time, in a lot of people's minds, it's like, my gas and electric will be sorted later. I'll always figure that out. We'll always find some money. And then they don't know where to go. So we're trying to shout at the top of our lungs, come and see us. We've done a lot of work in the past with Carol at United Utilities as well, where we do actually now save people quite a lot of money, a substantial amount of money using the schemes that they've got running. And if you are in the area of United Utilities, please listen to what Carol's got to say and refer your customers in. I've just been told off Jimmy, I've got to shut up. So I'm going to shut up now.
Do you know what? I've done this private again. I did this last time. Right, I did that privately then. Right, do you know what? I love the bones of you. Well, you were warned 5 minutes.
I know, Jimmy, but you shouldn't ask me to
sum you up. I think Suzanne's given a very, very good picture of what's available in Greater Manchester. And I'll tell you what was interesting in that scenario you said about the cats and all that. When you mentioned cats, I was going to switch off on that. But you know what came out of that? And I mentioned it, Amanda mentioned it in her talk, because when she originally done the last Fuel Poverty Forum, there was a phrase that she put in, collaboration rather than competition, which I actually love. What you could there on that example that you give there is the collaboration is very important going forward. And this competition, put competition to the side, people, start collaborating and working together. Because Suzanne just gave a perfect example of how this works. It is not only always just about gas and electric, it's about a whole bunch of other stuff. It is about quality of life, it is about water, it is about a whole bunch of stuff. Suzanne, thank you once again
Sorry, just one quick thing. Multi-agency working is really important for people's health and well-being, and mental health and well-being is massive at the moment. So if you don't get that multi-agency working now, then we're all going to be scuppered in the future. So I think it's really important that everybody actually works together and not against each other, like you say.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, I started off before about at the commencement of this forum about sort of positives about virtual forums and then sort of the positive thing it's brought. Rather sadly, well, not sadly, but one of the things COVID has done, it's in a way it's banged heads together, and there's organisations out there now suddenly realise there's a whole lot more people need help now. So there is a move now towards more collaborative working, which I really enjoy. But again, the last point you just made, Suzanne, is absolutely spot on about the mental health well-being. It all comes in a package. We cannot address this situation just as one single thing. Suzanne, thanks so much for that. I'll ask you back next time again, probably. I know I will. I'm my own worst enemy. So moving swiftly on to this one. We're now going to invite Dominic Griffith, from Energy Project Plus, who's got a presentation that will explain the support that Energy Project Plus provide to people across the whole of Merseyside and Cheshire. So again, hopefully our backup team is going to help us. So again, there's a click of a button and we're good to go, Dom.
Delivering our support during the COVID-19 pandemic. We're still here, and we've been delivering advice and support to vulnerable residents throughout the pandemic. As the first lockdown came into force, we had to react quickly to create offices in our homes so we could continue delivering our vital support to vulnerable residents. This shift to home working led to some major changes to the way we worked for much of this year. Like queuing up to collect our post from the local sorting office, and having office equipment posted home. We've had to adjust to a new dress code, and there have been new systems in place for booking meeting rooms. As there have been no community events for us to attend, and we can't knock on doors, we've had to think of other ways to share our advice. For example, we've posted out thousands of letters providing advice on staying warm and well during a pandemic. We've been able to turn the client appointment room in our office into a Zoom room from which we can deliver one-to-one client advice sessions in a private setting. We're also using the Zoom room to deliver team briefings and training for frontline workers who engage with vulnerable residents. Thanks to services such as WhatsApp, we're still able to survey clients' homes to assess their situation and determine what advice and support is needed. We're still working from home whenever we can, in accordance with government guidance. But we've also reorganised our office, so anybody who can't work from home can work safely in the office. This feels like another step towards normality. As we're not able to sit down with clients to complete the paperwork that's part and parcel of our work in the energy advice sector, we found some new ways to work, such as using a time-stamped photograph as evidence of an oil-filled radiator being delivered by a member of the team. If we do need to visit a client in their home, we're taking all precautions necessary to ensure the safety of our team. This includes a health survey where the client confirms that nobody in the property is showing symptoms and nobody is shielding. We also require clients to agree to open all internal doors so we may move about freely without touching anything, and to agree to maintain adequate distancing. We ensure our teams have the personal protective equipment deemed suitable for the nature of the visit. What advice and support does Energy Projects Plus have available? SEAL, our Save Energy Advice line, is available to provide advice to callers. The SEAL team can also be contacted at advice@epplus.org. As well as answering queries by phone and email, the SEAL team receives all referrals from our partners and determines which project team is best suited to help the client. Our LEAP team provides in-depth telephone advice for vulnerable residents across Merseyside and Cheshire. This support can lead to the provision of easy measures, such as LED bulbs and radiator reflector panels. The team can also access funding for boiler replacements, insulation, white goods, and first-time central heating. Our Warm Homes project, funded by British Gas Energy Trust, delivers support to clients who are struggling with their fuel bills. The team can help clients in many ways, from helping them complete an income expenditure form to better budget their finance, through to applying for funds to reduce or completely clear fuel and water debts. The team can challenge incorrect bills and escalate complaints to the Energy Ombudsman. We deliver this service in Halton, Knowsley, Liverpool, Sefton and Wirral. Citizens Advice St Helens is also funded by British Gas Energy Trust to deliver a similar project to residents in that local authority area. Switch Together, Save Together is the motto of the Merseyside Collective Switch we manage in partnership with the local authorities of the Liverpool City region. We have 14,000 members in our energy club, and we've saved them over £1.5 million through promoting cheaper energy tariffs. Our average saving is still over £200. Together with Energy Works at Groundwork Greater Manchester, we are delivering free training sessions to frontline workers who engage with vulnerable residents. The sessions are for organisations based anywhere across the northwest of England. We'll also be on hand to support the big energy saving networks, Energy Champions. How do I refer a client to Energy Projects Plus? We've launched a new online referral form, which you can find at www.epplus.org.uk/referrals. The link takes you to the referrals page, which you can use to access the referral form. From there, simply tell us who you are, who your client is, how we can make contact with them, what assistance they require, and the nature of their vulnerability. We'll take it from there. I'm now happy to take any questions.
And that was my way of making sure I didn't have to talk and remember what we're up to in the area. I brushed off some dust from my old keyboard because I thought it might be nice to have some background music to that. And after about 2 minutes, I realised it'd be far nicer to your ears to not have my keyboard playing on it. So that's why it was as is. But yeah, any questions for me?
So it's tumbleweed.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah,
it's Louisa from Riverside Housing. How busy are you guys at the moment, please?
we're very busy.
Yeah.
I think that'll be the case if you ask anybody doing anything similar anywhere in the country. We're all busy. We're all very much stretched, but we still have I'm not saying don't refer people to us because there's still capacity. Our teams tend to have like the in-depth advice calls might be fully booked up for next week and the week after, but the week after that there's still some gaps. So yeah, we're all running off our feet, but
yeah,
still
same for us. I just was curious. Thank you.
So again, just picking up on Dom's, I mean, we talk, I mean, we've been talking, we're national now because we're National Energy Action, and obviously my focus is Northwest, but every organisation we're talking to at the moment is absolutely inundated with work. But I think Dom's right. Don't ever let that put you off putting a referral, because there are alternatives to this. In that, because if you're working in collaboration, other organisations can take up the slack on this sometimes. Right, Dom, thanks for that. Again, Dominic's contact details are there. Again, once again, the slides will be on the NEA website to pick up further information or anything basically. So that's Suzanne Barningham, Energy Waste covers Greater Manchester and East Lancs. Dom's covered Merseyside. I have spoken to Groundworks actually, Suzanne. I'm going to bring them to the next forum because again, you're right, they're kicking off a couple of projects in West Lancashire, Ormskirk and somewhere else. But again, groundwork are on my radar to bring to the forum next time anyway. So we're covered, and I will try and get someone from Cumbria so that we've got a full coverage of it. So moving swiftly on to, we now have Carol Quinn from United Utilities is going to provide us an overview of the support that they are providing to their customers or the householders of United Utilities. Okay?
Yeah, you've got my slides, haven't you?
Yes, our tech team behind.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to give a very brief overview. I've been given a 5-minute slot, so I'm going to try and not go over that. So can I have the next slide, please? So basically, there's just been some changes, which is what I wanted to share with you. So this is our typical back on track scheme. So this slide is as is for anybody who meets the criteria of having £50 or more water debt from prior to April. Is on one of those benefits, and there's 6 bandings of which they will be placed on. The advisor does a matrix behind the system as to what they're on in terms of benefit amounts, and that will then predict which banding they need to come on. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, due to COVID, this is the new slide that I wanted to share with you. So basically, if you've got anybody who has been affected due to COVID financially, that means they are now struggling to pay. They may have now gone on to universal credit. They might be getting working tax credits. As long as they're on that benefit and they've got evidence of being impacted by COVID, doesn't matter whether they've got water arrears or not, they can apply for this scheme and will be placed on one of those 6 bandings for the current year. If you go on to the next slide, this just shows the type of information that would be required. So whether you're COVID affected or not, you'd complete an affordability assessment. But in relation to, back one. In relation to COVID, it's about being able to supply some evidence to show that actually you've lost your job, you've been furloughed, you've had a redundancy notification, anything that would support your application. Whether you're in arrears or not, we would look at that for you to see if we can get you a reduced bill for the current year. Next slide, please. So Help to Pay. So Help to Pay has been in place for quite a while, but we have changed some of the criteria. So this is your typical slide showing that if you live in social housing or other non-private rented accommodation, you as a customer or a third party can phone up, and as long as you're on pension credit or pension savings guarantee, you can get a capped charge. Now there's 2 tiers. Tier 1 is if you live on your own, the charge is £255. So if you're paying more than that, that will be the charge you're entitled to. Tier 2 is £360, and this is around if you've got somebody on pension credit or pension savings guarantee and they live with somebody who's either on that same benefit or state pension, they can also apply, and the charge would be £360. If you go to the next slide, please. So ignore the box on the left. I'm going to cover that on the next slide. I wanted to leave this slide in to show you that they can phone up and do it over the phone. They can go online and complete an application form. And there's also a difficulty paying your bill form that people can fill in, and we would then do the necessary without needing to phone the individual. If you go to the next slide, please. So the change with this is that if you are in a homeowner or private rented, we no longer need you to go to a third party. We had quite a lot of feedback that it's difficult to do that in relation to COVID, that Citizens Advice, for example, might have an 8-week list, and at the minute may not even be doing referrals and face-to-face, as you're all aware. We don't need evidence whether you're struggling to pay. We've decided that if DWP say that you're entitled to pension credit or pension savings guarantee, they've already done the financial impact on the household. So that is a real change to the implication of Help to Pay. Funnily enough, I've had quite a lot from groundwork where they've been into a property of an elderly person, phoned me up, and they've actually got people on the reduced tariff, which has been a great example of networking. Next slide, please. Payment break. So this has always been in place, but I just wanted to mention it in relation to COVID. So you might have somebody who has had changing circumstances, It could be due to an expense that they're not targeted for. It could be losing the job. It could be illness, car breakdown, boiler breakdown. It doesn't matter whether they're on benefit or not. As long as their income is 21,000 or less, and they have to be on means tested benefit, they can actually apply for a payment break. Now, for me, back on track would probably be a better scenario if somebody just wants to get the lower bill. But for some people, this might be better. They might be paying £20 per month and they want a gap for 3 months till they know that the job situation will be better, and they'll be able to then catch up with their instalments. And the advisor will have that conversation with the customer, because what we don't want is somebody to have that gap but then struggle to then pay those instalments back and have created more arrears. Next slide, please. This is just another example of some of the ideas of why and the period it will last for. Next slide. And this is just a bit of a change that we've done for free meter option. So this is for people who have quite a large water bill, might be living in a semi-detached house on their own next to the family of 4, paying exactly the same based on rateable value. So as it's always been, free meter option, so the fitting and the survey is free. You've then got 24 months to decide whether you like it or not. The difference that we introduced a few months ago is, if you have a meter fitted now, or if you have 3 months left of your 24-month period, we will always make sure during this period you will pay the lower amount. So if you've had a new meter fitted and first reading shows that you've paid £20 more than you would have paid on rateable value, you will pay the lower bill. And that will continue for the 24 months. And what we'll do is every bill that you get will show you either this is what you've saved this month compared to your rateable value, or this is what you've paid over compared to your rateable value. So it enables people who are a little bit nervous to think, okay, I can try for 24 months and I will not pay more than my rateable value charge. So that's something new that only came into place in the last few months to try and help people understand. There's an online calculator so people can go on and work out, ask for a weekly consumption, how many times you use the washing machine, how many times you have a shower, a bath, do you have a dishwasher, etc. That will then give you an idea. And there's also a link there to all the efficiency gadgets that we can share. So, you know, we've got saver flush for people who've got the traditional handle flush rather than buttons. We've got leaky loo strips so people can monitor whether they've got a leak in the toilet, which is one of the common things that happen. We've got shower heads, toothy timers, all sorts of stuff, and it's all free. Next slide, please. Yeah, and that's just a link to the web with all the details. I've sent quite a lot of you extra slides about this. We really expected a massive uplift back on track, and we haven't. And we don't know whether it's because we all know water is not a priority, so people aren't bothering. We don't know whether it's because some people who are furloughed actually aren't spending more money because they're not going anywhere. But it's a while since I've spoken to quite a few of you, so I'm more than happy to do a full presentation or go over any of these details. And I think the next slide just gives you my details. Any questions?
Nope.
Slide, Sean, in the first slide, Carol.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? You mentioned there was a list and it said job seekers allowance and so on and so forth. Is that income related job seekers allowance on the first slide that you showed? Or
yeah, it's tested, yeah.
Yeah, because right, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Sean. So no further questions with Carol. That's because you covered everything off wonderful, Carol. So again, Carol and Noel sort of can be contacted direct. Again, United Utilities, again, because Carol's sitting in front of me, but United Utilities do listen and they are ahead of the game. And from what Carol's just said there in their presentation, they've adapted. They understand the needs of the customers. So again, by all means, please contact Carol. And again, is that added strand of support the householders need in this situation. So that brings us nicely to the summing up and close. This is going to be sort of about 5 minutes. I'm just going to do a couple of slides, if you can put them up for us, Brian. Just a bit of self-publicity, actually, or a bit of promotion on behalf of on supporting NEA. NEA have adapted, and we are now delivering a whole suite of training webinars. We've put a couple on the left-hand side. Most of the majority of these are free. We can do organisational or open access individuals. So again, please look at that. We also are providing a warm and safe homes advice, telephone advice service. Again, free phone number. We cover nationally, so England and Wales. Again, please, if contact us and we will help. If we can help, we'll help there and then. But we also work with other organisations. So the likes of the example, people with us today, Energy Works and Energy Projects Plus. If we identify a client who phoned us or a householder that phoned us, and the best option for that particular householder would be getting support by Energy Works and or Energy Project Plus or any other organisation, we are more than happy to do a referral on that one. Just next slide, please, Brian. If hopefully sort of a lot of people in the room are aware that this coming Friday is Fuel Poverty Awareness Day. NEA would like your support on the Fuel Poverty Awareness Day. Again, support us on social media using the hashtags showing up on the screen and Twitter handles. You can also tag us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Again, you can contact. I don't think I asked Michael about this, I think on Friday. It's still not too late to contact Michael Potter direct with regard to a digital media pack if you want to engage. So that's Fuel Poverty Awareness Day. Again, please take part in it. The more pressure we can put on governments and organisations, let's raise it as a higher profile as we can. So your support on the Fuel Poverty Awareness Day would be very much appreciated. That's it, just a little bit of summing up. Again, I promised a couple of people that we would come back. Warm home discounts, a couple of questions I think Norman asked it earlier on. So I had a conversation with Bays, a direct conversation with Bays to just get this clear in everyone's head, right, and mine as well. I say I've done a feature or an article in the recent Fuel Debt Bulletin, and I did raise concerns with our policy team and direct with Ofgem. So the core group, let's cover off the core group. The core group are data matched. They will be covered. We've had confirmed off Bays. So if a energy company ceases trading and is then assigned a supplier of last resort, for core group, this is all, they are not required to pay the core group out. However, every supplier of last resort that has taken up or has ceased trading has agreed to cover the core group on that one. Again, the information we have with the merger of any suppliers, so the example is British Gas to Robin Hood. Again, under core group are covered under their license conditions, and I can't stress enough this is core group. So it looks as though core group is pretty much covered or protected on this one. However, moving swiftly on to the broader group, there is still some confusion in there because Michelle Melvin from Riverside has asked about the issue about Spark to SSE. We had a response back from Ofgem with regard to supplier of last resort. So that's the energy company that takes over the energy company that ceased trading. They do not have an obligation under current license conditions to pay out on the broader. However, most of the supplier of last resort are inviting householders to claim again. So again, with an energy company that has gone bust or ceased trading goes over to the new energy company, the hope is that the supplier of last resort, certainly within their welcome packs, to confirm that confirms they are now a customer of the new supplier, should raise the issue or identify about reclaiming or making a reapplication for broader group. The other group, there are two groups being affected here. So the merger of British Gas, who took over Robin Hood. Again, British Gas and other companies like them are not obliged to pay out on broader group. They don't have to under the conditions. However, British Gas have agreed to pay. On their website, they've said they will cover Robin Hood customers. However, Robin Hood customers have to apply or reapply to British Gas. Again, it is hoped, and I've not been able to get a copy of it, the welcome pack that confirms that the customer is now a new customer of British Gas. We're hoping that within the welcome pack, it will sort of flag up that they have to apply for broader group warm home discount rebate. That depends on two things. Lovely, I say British Gas have got a lovely page on their website providing advice information. It depends on people getting onto that website. 4.5 million people in the country haven't got access to internet. It also, believe it or not, depends on the new customer reading the welcome pack. Again, it might be hidden, so you would not have copy. But again, the only advice or guidance we can give you at the moment is if you are aware of any customers like that, get them to reapply again. And again, unfortunately, we're still on the situation with broader group is first come, first served. There is a higher demand on broader group applications this year because there's a whole bunch of people out there who've got changed circumstances and now are eligible for warm home discounts. So if you are aware of any customers in that situation, get them to reapply to their new NE supplier. The question of Spark and SSE, Michelle, I can't give you a straight answer on that one. We've got information. It appears that Spark customers are being transferred to or migrated to SSE between September and December of this year. So the migration is in place as we speak. SSE is part of the OVO family. So again, Spark are not obliged to cover applications that have already been made on behalf or directly to Spark. The information on their website is saying that once they receive their welcome pack from SSE to confirm that they are a customer, it appears that the Spark customers may or will have to reapply for broader group again. Again, the problem we've got with that one is first come, first served. So if you have any Spark customers, our advice or guidance, if you like, is to get Spark customers to apply. The thing that's confusing things, because a couple of my colleagues have made recent applications this week on the Spark website, they've accepted them. But again, on the frequently asked questions part of the website of Spark, they're saying they have to wait until they are confirmed as SSE customers. So again, just bear that in mind and going forward. Finally, ability to pay. Mark mentioned this in his policy, and Chris Burke from St Helens Council said something about this sort of how's it tying in. I can tell you now, and even at my age, I'm delivering field jet webinars on behalf of NEA at the moment. Even at my age, very rare I get excited over anything for a number of reasons, because I'll faint otherwise. I'm very excited at this. Ofgem are a very slow moving beast sometimes. And I think what Chris was relating to and Matt was trying to say is it's in motion, it's a progress, it's a thing in progress. Standard ability to pay have always been there on principles. Ofgem expected energy companies to follow them rules on ability to pay. And I don't know about you, but personally, I'm finding energy companies are being very, very aggressive on their debt recovery tactics over these last 2 or 3 months. I have a number of complaints in against them already. The ability to pay, Ofgem finally got fed up, I think, of any suppliers because they weren't abiding by the ability to pay principles. They are now incorporated into standard license conditions. Matt's just appeared on the screen. You're going to jump in and tell me off here for saying something that I shouldn't?
No, absolutely not. It was just a clarification, I think. So one of the things they've done, the ability to pay principles previously wasn't based on the amount of money. It was based on the type of payment was what was specified in the rule, and that's one of the big changes they're bringing in. It's the actual amount of money paying back per month or whatever will be the ability of the householder.
Yeah, I believe the ability to pay principals, which are being incorporated into standard license conditions from the 15th December, will be a big game changer for energy advisors out there, because the standard license conditions mean that energy suppliers have to do their total on this one, and it is based on ability to pay and is on the needs of the individual customer, right? I am excited over this. I have already used it with one energy supplier this week with great success. But look out for, or start looking at. We do cover in our, if anyone's not done our field, and this is an advert or a promotion, and if anyone's not done our field deck course, jump on our field deck course. We cover it in great detail, especially with what's happening for it. But again, if you do not wish to come on one of our training, on our field deck training course, get on the website and look up ability to pay principles on the off-gen. That will give you clear guidance as to what is expected under the license conditions from the energy suppliers. I believe it is a big game changer on behalf of individual householders and advice workers like yourselves out there. Do it, people. And on that note, all I have to say now is 1 minute over time. Thank you so much to our speakers today. Excellent. And again, I'm not saying it because you're sitting in front of me. The content and the advice and information provided by our speakers has been absolutely spot on today. Thank you for attending the forum today, and also for supporting us as well. Again, the slides and a recording of the forum will be on our website, I think sometime tomorrow. Thank you, people. I do so look forward to seeing you in the real world. That is not likely to happen. We will probably be here again in about 4 to 5 months for our next forum, and hopefully that will be the last, and we'll get together over a cup of coffee or a cup of tea in the very, very near future. So again, it just leaves me to say thank you so much for everyone in the room, and take care, look after yourselves, and keep doing what you're all doing. Everything is spot on, and we're doing it. Let's get the government and Ofgem and Bays all on board with us, and we will get there eventually in one day. Is that okay?